Meeting of the Board of Directors of Joshua Basin Water District for Wednesday, July 18th. Please rise and join Tom in the Pledge of Allegiance. You want to lead us?
Sure. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Determination of quorum.
Madam President, all 5 directors are here. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. The agenda is approved. We will move to item number 5, public comment. This is the time set aside for public comment on any district-related matter not appearing on the agenda. Government code prohibits the board from taking action on these items, but they may be referred for future consideration. Please state your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Mr. Marquez.
Al Marquez, Sunfair Community of Joshua Tree. It pains me to having to repeat myself over and over and over again for the last couple of years on well 14. But as of July 18th of this month, well 14, this well has been out of service since February of 2016. That's 30 months, 912 days. And as far as my estimate, I haven't found out yet what the cost is so far, but my estimation is that it's already cost more than $800,000 to the district and its ratepayers. The original cost was $173,000 to refurbish that well. The Board of Directors authorized $644,000 to rehabilitate that well 14. As we could, before this is, in my view, is either incompetency or unaccountability, both from management and the Board of Directors. In 2016, a previous president of the board stated the well must be in operation by the summer of that year. Another board member commented, well 14 was a crown jewel of our district and it has to be brought back online as soon as possible. The district needs to be repaired at all costs. That's the statement that this board director said. And so much for the board's wishes and direction to bring that back online. With all the money that this district has paid for on well 14 to get it rehabilitated, they could have got well 11 back in service for a lot less money. And it's still sitting there idle. It has been idle since 2008. So I would imagine that the board would either look into it and find out what's going on with the funds that are for these wells. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Any other public comments? Seeing none, we will move to the consent calendar. Matters on the consent calendar are considered routine in nature and will be enacted in a single motion without discussion. Any board member or member of the public may request that an item be removed from the consent calendar and acted on separately. So it's the draft minutes of June 20th, 2018, the regular special meeting. Draft minutes of June 20th, 2018, the regular meeting of the Board of Directors. Check registers for May 2018, which has been reviewed by the Finance Committee on July 18th. And the third quarter ending 3/31/2018 financial report, which was also reviewed by the Finance Committee on July 11th. Are there any changes or is there a motion?
I recommend a change. There's a misspelling on page 5 of 68. Sort of midway down, and it says Gary Sturdivant responded that it had not been eliminated and so on. It came directly from the HAZUS program from FEMA, so I think that's like hazardous or something like that, but otherwise.
So where's the change you want?
To change that, I assume,
Hazardous to hazardous.
right,
Okay.
hazardous to hazardous, thank you.
Okay, got it. Okay, with that change, is there a motion?
I would just make a comment before making the motion that we approve the consent calendar, that there's been such an outcry of people being interested in the check registry, during the finance meeting, that we should go ahead and maybe go back like we had in the old days and go check by check through the board meetings. But that is a joke for all those of you that aren't attending our wonderful finance meeting. But with that, I would make a motion to approve the consent calendar. With that change, yes, please.
Oh, I want to second that one.
Is it, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, so the consent calendar has been passed. Item number 7, authorizing the general manager to sign a preliminary quote with California Special Districts Association, CSDA, to obtain a $3 million lease purchase loan for the implementation of the mainline replacement program. Mr. Sauer.
So we've discussed this several times at the Finance Committee. I think we've discussed it at the board several times. And Susan's been doing her due diligence with CSDA, and she has a report to give to the board, and we'd like you to approve the general manager entering into an agreement with the CSDA for this loan.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to apologize, but also point out that you should have had a replacement document up on your dais. Included in the packet was a 12-year loan instead of the 15-year. We never talked about 12 years with the board. We talked about 15 and we talked about 20. And the cash flows that we've done all of our analysis are based on this 15-year document, okay? So this is the correct document. It doesn't change anything else in the report. So the recently adopted budget included the mandate from the board that we get moving very quickly on this capital replacement program. And we investigated, costs associated with that, and we determined that, as a reminder, that we could either start the project, right away. We could buy all the equipment, but we don't have money to do the work, or we could, I guess we can't do the work if we don't have the equipment. So we couldn't do both. So we determined that we were about $3 million short, and that we needed to borrow some money to meet your directive. So we investigated several loan options. We brought forth to the board something from CSDA, USDA Rural Development, SWRCB, the State Revolving Fund loans. And USDA and SWRCB have a very long, a very protracted application process that can take up to a year to get funding. CSDA is a nonprofit financing corporation, a branch of the California Special Districts Association, and they can expedite this. They don't have that protracted process, funding within 45 to 60 days. So based upon your direction to get moving quickly, that's the best option for the district. So they've provided this preliminary quote, and it's considered preliminary because the district still has to qualify. We have to do all the application process. I don't expect there to be any glitch in that process whatsoever. The district has outstanding credit. We have very little debt. The only debt we have is Copper Mountain Mesa Assessment District, so very light on debt. We're going to fly through this process. That's not an issue. But it needs to be called preliminary for their purposes so that they're protected. So we talked about the opportunity to pay off, the early payoff option with the loan. So after 7 years, we can pay off early. If we do that, we would save $292,000 in interest over the long term, the 15-year term of the loan, and that would include, mean $726,399 worth of interest and costs would be paid as part of the loan if we pay off, again, at 7 years. The money is, required to do the crew, to hire the crew, to do to get the equipment in place. And important to note, because this is going to fund a construction project, that construction costs increase at a faster pace than the consumer price index. So your other sort of, grocery basket of goods in the last year increased at almost 50% of what the construction cost index did. So over 7 years, the cost of doing this project, if we applied that 4.38% construction cost index to it, would increase over $717,000. Doing nothing, just waiting around, costs escalate. So, we can get this project under our belt for $726,000 worth of interest. And more importantly is the fact that doing this work in-house will save the district considerably, well over 50%. We're projected to save $1.8 to $2.2 million per year by bringing this work in-house. So we're going to save all of this interest in 1 year, more than all of this interest in 1 year, to get started right away. And again, a year from now, we're going to have a project under our belt. So it's staff recommendation that, this is the best option based on the direction that you have provided. We want to sign, agree to these terms so that we can lock in the rate. The rate has not changed for, nearly a month right now, but, rates are going up. That's what's predicted to happen long-term with interest rates. So if this is your intention, then now would be a good time to lock in this rate, get this process going, and hopefully within 45, sooner than later, 45 to 60 days, we will have this loan in hand, this money in hand. The issuance of debt, such as this, the issuance of debt by public agencies requires, SB 1029 is a new law that requires that the district adopt a debt management policy or debt policy. You may recall that Alex Handlers mentioned this several times as we discussed borrowing money as part of the rate study. Well, we're upon it now, and we've got to get a debt management policy in place because this law requires that the district notify the California CDIAC, California Debt and Investment Advisory Commission, no less than 30 days prior to the issuance of the debt that we intend to do so. So if we're looking at a 45-day time frame, best option of getting this money, then we need that debt management policy in place sooner than later. We will bring that to the very next board meeting for approval. We can't run it through the Finance Committee, unfortunately, because of that really tight timeline. I don't want to not have that policy in place and then not be able to give that required 30-day notice and delay the funding of our loan. Okay, so we've got some good samples of that. CSDA, actually, the California Special Districts Association, provides wonderful policy templates on a litany of policies, including this one. So we've got that and several others. So we have a good document in hand. So all that being said, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. The cost of this, obviously, $726,399 over the 7 years, which will be more than offset by the savings to come from bringing all of this work in-house. So,
Thank you. Comments from the board, Rebecca?
Nothing at this time.
I just would like to ensure that the loan is for the sole purpose of the CIP, and that the expenditures of the money are going to go toward the CIP, and that a lot of this is a projection on water rates that we still don't have actual numbers yet. And so I just want to be a little cautious on that.
Okay, thank you. Director Hunt?
Well, I support this. I really appreciate the research that you all did and the options that you presented, and you laid out a very, clear options and made I think, a very good case for going forward. So I support it.
Thank you. Director Sloan?
I've been reading everything. There's strings attached to all of these things. There's roots and justifications and support for all sorts of this, for many of the things that we do here. And I was reading in the government code section 8855, and as a matter of fact, one of the things that we have to include in our debt policy is the relationship of the debt to and the integration with the issuer's capital improvement program or budget. And so we're required by law to do that. Further, in 8856, and it seems to be it's an optional thing, but this commission that we're talking about here, the California Debt Investment Advisory Commission, may require fees and charges that could be, there was a percentage in here someplace, but what it amounts to is that the maximum that they could charge is $5,000. And so then that made me think about the new budget that was recently handed out that allows $50,000 for reports and studies. And so I was wondering if this would be a possible use for that kind of money, realizing that all this money comes from one bucket. But is that something that, and I don't even know if it's yearly or if it's just a one-shot deal or not. I know you have to report
Right.
to these guys yearly.
Yes.
And so kind of what I'm saying too is that this situation that we're in now, which is rather sudden, I haven't heard it mentioned before, that this is why we would have a reserve of such a type, is that we have in the budget allocated some money for studies and such, but I'm not sure if a lease purchase loan falls under these government code statutes. It sounds like we're in compliance with it in other areas, so it sounds like this part would be something we have to consider too. But it's just that I just want to point out that there's nothing hypothetical about reports and studies
Right.
in the budget, that there are things that can occur, and that some of these laws are quite fresh. And it's good to have that money allowed for such a thing. I think that's about all I have, thank you.
Thank you. And I did attend the Finance Committee meeting where they were looking at this, and I'm in totally support of it, so. And it was covered, the Finance Committee is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, oh, yes. Thorough.
Riveting.
Riveting, yes, there is riveting.
Thanks to the participants.
If I may, Director Johnson, I think the recommendation, or perhaps the topic might be in the form of a motion for you, because it says authorizing the general manager to sign a preliminary quote with California Special Districts Association to obtain a $3 million lease purchase loan for the implementation of the mainline replacement program. So you might create that in the form of a motion, and then it includes your concerns right within the motion.
Well, we just go with that and then add on if it's.
Absolutely.
with
If there's
the,
more
with the
detail that you
board's,
want, right.
Concurrence that this is primarily for our capital improvement program. So the monies will be designated for this.
Okay, so what she said
Yes,
and that.
please.
Okay, that is the
Our county
motion.
recorder.
Any public comment? Gail?
Gail Austin, Joshua Tree resident. I just want to commend the board and the staff on doing what they're doing. For so many years, it was the staff saying we got to replace these lines, the board saying we got to replace these lines, but nothing happening. And so I want to commend you guys because number one, you raised the rates and now you're taking out a loan. And some people might take that the wrong way, but I can actually see that we are going to get those lines repaired. And so I just want to commend you guys because you are stepping out on a limb with the community sometimes. And not everybody gives input, so I just wanted to give a little input. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, we have a motion. Bob's motion, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We'll do a roll call on this. We'll start with your end, please. Tom?
I vote aye.
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 Aye, it is unanimous. We will go to work on the loan. Thank you very much, Susan.
You're welcome.
Going to item number 8, the capital replacement program, heavy equipment purchasing. Recommend the board authorize the general manager to purchase 10 pieces of heavy equipment from RDO Equipment Company and 1 piece of equipment from Asphalt Zipper Inc. in an amount not to exceed $1,698,455. These are allergies. I'm not choking over the numbers.
Well, it was a lot of money.
There's a lot of money market. I think this is yours, huh?
But let me throw something in here, because I goofed in my introductory remarks. I want to mention to the board, we've covered the Gantt chart in our finance meeting, our water operations meeting. There's copies available to the board. There's copies available to the public. Anybody on YouTube that finds out about our Gantt chart, if they want a copy, just let us know and we'll email it to you or send it by USPS. But basically, the management team for the past 3 weeks has been scrambling and working cohesively to put together everything that we need to do, what needs to occur first, second, third, so that we can get to the mainline replacement. And so if you look, and later tonight when you're at home and you can't go to sleep because you've been so riveted by this financial stuff, basically we've laid out, we need to get the loan going first. We're going to talk about equipment purchase second, and pipeline design and permits, permission to enter into a contract with an engineering firm will be brought to the board August 1st. And then we'll be working on water main replacement, which includes another item, which is the hiring. And that's some 5 positions for capital improvement team and a couple others for procurement and water production, or whatever the other one is. So we've got this lined out, and we're bringing these things to the board as quickly as we can so we can get these folks on, and the equipment arrived, the shop remodeled, and start on the CIP at the same time. There's an RFP out for request for proposals for 4 meter companies to begin our 5-year program of replacing the meters. So this kind of lays it out. It's a draft. The applying for the loan needed to be done by August 13th, so now with your approval, Susan can apply for the loan, and we can go through that process. So it's not like the staff is just sort of haphazardly going at this. We've had several meetings for several hours. Susan, Mark, Sarah, Ann, and others have been cloistered in their little offices, working with each other. Okay, I got to get this done, you're going to do that, etc. So it's a pretty dynamic and exciting time at the district. The employees are gobbling this up. So I want to thank you for your support, and we'll continue to try and perform to the highest standard that you expect. And so with that, let me go on to the equipment replacement. We were going to bring this at the next board meeting, but Mark found out last week that come August 1st, there is a 5 to 20% increase in the costs of some of the pieces of equipment. And so if we can get this done prior to August 1st, we will end up not spending as much money. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mark for a report on the equipment purchase.
Thank you, Kurt. So I wanted to go through and just kind of show a visual of each of the pieces of equipment that are up for your consideration for purchase tonight, and also kind of give you a brief explanation of what that piece of equipment is actually used for a project of this magnitude. So for the actual excavation of the pipeline, it's a 135G excavator. So this actually uses rubber tracks instead of steel to meet the county's requirements. Can't have steel tracks on the road, especially in the conditions some of these are, it'll tear it up. And so this will be our main piece of excavation equipment for digging the pipeline trench out there. We'll have a 410 rubber-tired backhoe. This is for digging service lines and other trenches that are in tighter areas and spaces. Also used for smaller backfill projects, hydrants, service lines. And then also under excavation, the first part of the project is, of course, this asphalt zipper that's attached to a loader we'll talk about later there. This will actually grind up the asphalt in place so that we can actually dig the trench without destroying more asphalt than we really need to out there. For backfilling that trench is a 672 motor grader. This is one of those pieces of equipment that we also said will double for doing tank road maintenance, for scarifying the recharge ponds and smoothing them out as well. And this piece of equipment is very instrumental in making sure that you can get all your pipeline backfilled in a day. It almost doubles that amount. Of course, you're limited to in a day how much you could dig by how much you could backfill by the end of it. And this piece of equipment really lets you stretch that trench out in a day to put the maximum amount of pipeline that you can. This is a 544K rubber-tired front end loader. Again, it's a piece of backfill equipment. It's also used for our asphalt zipper, for material transportation. It comes with a set of forks, basically, that hydraulically pop on and off along with this bucket attachment. So when we're stringing out pipe throughout the day or unloading ricks of pipe off of trucks, moving them around, hydrants, different things like that, that bucket will actually pop off. We can put the fork attachment on and move that stuff around. So again, days where there's not as much trench opener, we've done a tie-in. It serves as another piece of backfill equipment. This is a Kenworth T270 has dump truck up there, but it's actually a water truck, believe it or not. So this is a 2,000 gallon capacity water truck. Of course, we need this for the backfill process, so that'll help us, will assist us in getting our compaction. And then for cleanup, right on broom. Not only is this instrumental for cleanup around our mainline jobs, we have issues, such as many of us have probably noticed along the highway with the leaks that we've been having, actually coming out of this first project area that we plan to address. For cleaning up leak areas and other construction sites as well, to keep the debris and dirt off of the road. And then a dump truck, anytime you excavate anything, you're going to end up with a lot more dirt than you took out of there, so that's going to have to go someplace. I don't know where the extra comes from, but so this is used for that, for hauling asphalt on some of the smaller paving days, for when we have other leak patches to do and things like that. And then for the paving portion of it, this is an asphalt spreader, a paver, basically a truck. Asphalt truck backs right up to this. This machine actually pushes that truck along. One of the county requirements is that we install a 1-inch cap over our trench repair, a foot either side of the trench, and this basically allows us to put that cap and that finished product on. And then of course a roller to roll both the trench and the overlay repairs. And then hauling, getting a lot of that, the pipe out to each of the jobs, especially as we get further out into the district. This will be used to put pipe on it, fire hydrants. It's also used for hauling materials around. This truck ends up being really instrumental to the project as well. And then, of course, an equipment trailer, which isn't on this tonight. With that, any questions about any of the pieces of equipment? Or?
Rebecca?
Wow, that's great. Oh my gosh, so this is new equipment for us.
Correct.
And not even like replacement equipment. This is stuff that we don't even have currently.
Right. For this, we do have a Ford 10 and a dump truck out there, but this would be dedicated equipment to that project. So that's used for leaks and things of that nature.
And then the employees that we don't have too, we'll have them. We can do a lot with this. What's the life on some of this equipment?
A lot of it you could push out. I've seen, 20-year-old tractors out there that still run really well, even plus that. Good for budgeting processes, 10 years usually, if you're using it hard enough like we will be. So.
Oh, great, thank you.
With our capital improvement, I noticed that we had some shop improvement. I'm assuming we're going to have some sort of shelter for all the vehicles.
Most of this stuff actually remains out on the job site. with the exception of the drivable equipment like the water truck or the dump truck. A lot of times those will come back to the shop, but typically what we'll look for is renting from another property owner, some small lot that's vacant. But they do have shields that actually go up over all the glass basically that come with the price of the equipment that you install, so nobody can vandalize it and things like that. The glass. So.
Very good. Director Hunt?
This is completely out of the professional realm, but I have to say, when I looked at those pictures, it harkened back to my days as a kid with my Tonka truck. I was really excited looking at those pieces of equipment. Maybe. I just had one or two. But no, it's obviously well thought out and researched, and to me, and I really appreciate you sharing photos and describing what each of the pieces of equipment will do. To me, it's just very emblematic of the progress that we're making. So, thank you.
Director Sloan?
Does that hauler truck, which is a flatbed, does it have a lift gate on it, or do we need that?
The flatbed one is just a stake bed. It remains that way. The actual dump truck does though have a gate. Yeah.
I'm aware that we could be lifting things with the tractors into the truck too.
Right.
Those tractors are quite versatile.
Right.
As I've mentioned before. Could you kind of speak to who these vendors are a little bit? This RDO Equipment Company and Asphalt Zipper, how did we find out about them and all that?
Sure, and if you don't mind as well, there's a spreadsheet that Beverly passed out before the meeting as well. We can go through along with that. This company that's supplying the equipment here, except for the asphalt zipper, is a company called RDO Equipment Company. And basically, they're our territory's vendor for John Deere equipment, Kenworth, and a lot of different other manufacturers, a lot of larger manufacturers. And basically, being the territory provider for this equipment, anything that you purchase from anybody else, whether it be bid or not, is going to add another 7% onto it. So they're going to have to go through RDO to buy it, and they're going to mark it up, at least that 7% that's there. One good thing about us being a special district is we're also part of a company called, or a process called NJPA. I think I got that right, Sarah, right?
Yeah.
I change the letters around every other time I say it. But so being a part of NJPA actually gets us government bid pricing. And in addition to that, any other types of discounts that they can provide us, they can do through there as well. And so if you look through some of these prices that were included in the board report, you can also see this column called discount amount over here towards the end of that. You can see for the excavator, for the 410 backhoe, which is the first that comes up, there's an $80,000 discount. So originally, $184,000 becomes $139,000 after taxes, basically. The discount's applied pre-tax. The excavator, another $85,000 discount. The front-end loader, $117,000 discount. And then the big one, the motor grader, is actually a $213,000 discount. So the suggested retail cost on that equipment is $508,000. And we'll be getting it for $350,000 out the door on that one. And interestingly enough, this is another one of those pieces of equipment that I talked to him about, purchasing used as opposed to new. High Desert, as part of their increased pipeline project, when they had the second crew going, had leased some of this equipment, and 672 was part of that. And so after that got utilized for 3 years, it actually went back to RDO for sale. And they ended up actually selling that piece of equipment 3 years old with hours on it more than what we're paying for it brand new. So it definitely maintains its value, and certainly good to buy new in our position anyway. And then the rest of this information as well, I kind of went back and forth with him on, some of the other items like the trucks. They had sold back in 2016 2 trucks to the County of San Bernardino, dump trucks like what we were getting. For a unit price of $98,280. These are actually 2019, and those were Ford 750s. These are actually 2019 Kenworths that we're getting for just a few $1,000s more than what they were in 2016. So, and again, The broom, we'll be getting that for $39,000 through them. High Desert just paid the same cost for that one, $54,000, almost $55,000. So certainly shopping around and trying to get the best price that we can from them, going back and forth as much as we can, so.
Excellent. Good job.
One more.
Yes, sir.
So since we're using a regional supplier for these things, vendor, I guess would be a word, do they also supply parts and such also? Because we're going to be wearing out things and breaking things and
Right.
such.
Yeah, they supply all the parts that you need for John Deere. And then as part of this pricing here too is our included 3-year maintenance plan too. So they'll be coming out basically every 3 to 6 months depending on the hours on the tractor and servicing it too, so.
What I kind of see, just as a more or less a regular guy here, is that these are familiar names, John Deere and Kenworth in particular. These aren't mysterious pieces of equipment from who knows where. These are a business standard, and it's high. So therefore, there's reliability, and also we have a supply chain for parts. Seems like a good deal. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment. Anyone have any comments? Mr. Marquez?
Marquez, Center Community Adjusted Street. These are more questions than anything else. I noticed that a lot of these vehicles for the replacement of the main line and stuff like that are vehicles that you can't drive on the roads. Is there going to be one trailer to be able to transport all these vehicles, or is there going to have multi-trailers for different vehicles? Also, to be able to drive these vehicles, and of course you need a lot of extensive training and be certified to drive these vehicles. I'm just wondering if the management is going to give the board the information about what they plan to do as far as the training to drive these vehicles and to maneuver them throughout the whole community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
Yeah, as far as the training, the certification goes, hauling that equipment around on a trailer does require a Class A if you were to operate those vehicles. The actual heavy equipment, as you'll see the county and Caltrans and all of them roading their equipment to the job site and stuff, we'll be able to do that same thing. The only piece of equipment that really requires a trailer is that excavator. You don't want to be actually driving that to places since it's a track. So the rest of them being rubber tired, we can drive from job site to job site. So, and we do plan on only purchasing one trailer for that. So.
Thank you. Anything else from the public? Seeing none, does someone wish to make a motion?
I move that we authorize the general manager to purchase 10 pieces of heavy equipment from RDO Equipment Company and 1 piece of equipment from Asphalt Zipper, Inc., in an amount not to exceed $1,698,455.42.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. We'll start with you, Director Flum,
Aye.
Director Hunt,
Aye.
Director Johnson,
Aye.
Director Unger,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. It's unanimous. We're underway. I can't tell you how excited I am. It's been a long time coming. We've been promising and promising, and now we're going to see some action. So thank you both to Mark and to Kurt and Susan and the rest of the staff for making this actually come to be. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item number 9, approval to contract with Mary Orton Company to complete the strategic plan for the district. Mr. Sauer.
My recommendation is that the Board of Directors approve the selection of Mary Orton Company to conduct our strategic planning process. Our district's strategic plan was last updated in 2013. One of the recommendations of the organizational assessment is to develop a strategic plan. We've adopted that recommendation with the adoption of the organizational assessment. We went out for proposals and received 2 proposals. We went out for 2 proposals. One was from Weston Technologies, who did our organizational assessment, and one is from the Mary Orton Company that worked with the district in 2014 on a management team workshop entitled Becoming a High-Performance Team. The Western proposal's for $29,800. It includes 1-hour interviews with board members, 1-hour interviews with up to 10 individual employees in production, distribution, customer management, and finance, and 2 development workshops with the management team and key staff, and a final review of the plan with the management team and the board of directors. It would also include interviews with the directors at the startup of the system. Mary Orton's company proposal is up to $33,000, depending on actual costs incurred for travel. She will be traveling from Oregon. Their proposal states the estimate represents what they think would be the maximum. They will not charge us the maximum. They will charge for actual expenses incurred. Their proposal covers interviews with employees, all employees, using 6 groups to include a mixture of production, distribution, customer service, finance, and managers, and the Citizens Advisory Committee. The directors will be interviewed either individually or in groups of 2, 2, and 1, depending on your preference. Sarah and I have worked on the review of these 2, well, let me go on with the Mary Orton companies, why Sarah and I liked this one better. After completing the interviews, Mary Orton Company will conduct 2 full-day, 2-day sessions. At the first 2-day session with managers, supervisors, and selected employees, the goal will be to update the vision and mission and to develop a series of goals for an agreed-upon time frame. The second 2-day session will include the same participants. The desired outcome will be to agree upon objectives for each goal and to accomplish some action planning for those objectives, including, if time allows, some sequence ordering of those actions. So it gets into a bit more detail. And without violating the Brown Act, Mary Orton is interested in having 1 or perhaps 2 board members attend all of those sessions. So after review of the second page, do you have a second page in there? Oh, good. So I'll just go wing it by heart here. So after review of the 2 proposals, Sarah and I are recommending that Mary Orton's company be hired. We believe that her background is more in employee interaction, team building, and other interactive processes. She has a master's degree in conflict resolution and bringing people together. There's no doubt that the Weston Technologies is more familiar with the water industry, but I don't think that this strategic plan is about how many valves and how many hydrants and how many miles of pipeline. It's about creating a team and the momentum for the board and the staff to move forward. So that's our recommendation, that we go with the Mary Orton Company.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Dr. Weinberg?
Yeah, we worked with Weston on the organizational assessment.
Yes.
That can be incorporated into the strategic plan in some way? Is that something that would be?
Yes, she's intending to review the organizational assessment. She's also submitted a couple copies of strategic plans that she has worked on. And yeah, the organizational assessment findings will be considered and incorporated into the process.
I saw a sample or a copy of one of Weston's strategic plans. It seemed a little lean. It was a little too short on specifics, as far as I was concerned. You need to have some kind of quantifiable goals that you're going to meet in a strategic plan. Like you say, within a time frame, you've got to have some meetable goals in there, and I guess I would expect to see that, some specifics in a strategic plan. So I would be interested to see what the Mary Orton Company can offer. I look forward to being in the sessions. It's really important.
Thank you. Dr. Johnson?
No, I concur. I like the fact is that in print here, which it states that it'll be at least considering the next 20 years, which I think is good forward leaning, and I like that. At least to have a template set out there.
Thank you. Dr. Hunt?
I like their proposal as you've summarized it, and I think that you made the right choice, and I support it.
Thank you, Dr. Flynn.
I was satisfied with Western Technologies on what they did for us with the organizational study and all their recommendations. However, what's appealing to me is to have somebody else come in doing what they do, Mary Orton, they would give us another perspective on what Weston did, and maybe de-emphasize some things and emphasize other things, who knows? But I kind of like the idea of having a second viewpoint in that realm. So that's why I find Mary Orton to be compelling. An anecdote, I worked for a place that built a new office building, we'll say. It was in excess of a $10 million multi-story building. This was in the 90s. And the manager of the building was a very pro-employee, pro-morale kind of a guy. And I was standing with him one day, and he looked through our office windows, because we had large office windows on both sides so we could watch things. And he saw one of the custodians walking through the office area of the building with his wife and his children. And the custodian appeared to be describing with pride what the building was about and all of that. And he said, that's the kind of thing that I want in my office, where what you could say, even though they're essential, they're one of the lower positions of responsibility in an office. He says, that's the kind of thing I want, where they actually feel a sense of ownership. And if she can, that's Mary Orton, give us a vision, which is a very touchy-feely kind of a thing, which in the end translates into productivity. I'm all for this kind of thing, I really am. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I would agree with what was said. And I think based on your interpretation of the Mary Orton Company, that's the company that we should go with. I will now open it to public comment. Anybody? Seeing no public comment, I will close public comment. And do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. All right, I make the motion that the Board approve, that the Board of Directors approve the selection of the Mary Orton Company to conduct a strategic planning process at a cost of not to exceed $34,000.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Again, for this money, we'll take a roll call vote. Dr. Sloan?
Aye.
Dr. Hunt?
Aye.
Dr. Johnson?
Aye, I hear it.
Director Under?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. It's unanimous, and it's the Mary Orton Company. Thank you very much to Sarah and Kurt. We'll go to item number 10, changes in office hours of operation. Recommend that the Board of Directors approve new office hours Monday through Thursday, 7:30 to 4:30.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
so the administrative code, 4.04.10, hours of employment, states that it shall be the duty of the general manager to devote his time to the duties of his office. The general manager shall see that the office is open to the public from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., 5 days a week, excluding Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays. So with this, we're recommending a change to the administrative code. One of the recommendations of the organizational assessment was that we close the offices to the public on Friday. The purpose of that closure is to better align employee responsibilities and reduce the amount of hours that finance employees are required to cover customer service on the Fridays of half staff. That's estimated at 32 hours per month, that Gail and Autumn will be able to continue to focus on the financial aspects, which they were hired to do primarily. They were also hired to fill in. It also gives 16 additional hours per month to the distribution staff to conduct operations and maintenance work rather than responding to non-emergency service orders. Emergency service orders will continue to be filled. Additionally, in talking with our customer service staff while we were discussing how we're going to do all this stuff, they've recommended, and Susan and I support, that we change the office hours from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Internally, these hours would allow the customer service representatives to cash out and reconcile on daily payments from 4:30 to 5, creating more timely payment posting and simpler reconciliation. The cash out could then occur outside the presence of the public, which is a safety improvement. Furthermore, closing the office doors half an hour before the end of the customer services representative's workday is also likely to alleviate the overtime occasionally incurred when customers come in at 5 minutes till 5. Best of all, this change would increase customer convenience by allowing customers to stop by the office in the mornings on their way to work, and especially helpful on lock-off days. On lock-off days, we have people in line starting at about 7 o'clock in the morning waiting for the office to open at 8 so they can get their water turned back on. So it would be particularly beneficial on lock-off days. And lock-off days are one of our busiest days at the customer service counters. So our recommendation is Monday through Thursday, 7:30 to 4:30.
Thank you. Start at the other end this time.
Yes.
Comments?
Yeah, just the part that really rang a bell with me that I was sensitive to with this part where our finance people, accounting folks, have to spend up to 32 hours a month supporting the counter staff, we used to call them. We're going to be really busy, and I don't think we should be spending those hours doing that. Our accounting people need to be in their offices doing accounting things. It's all hands on deck, I think, from now on. And making these kinds of adjustments and making the most use out of the personnel that we have, I think is critical to this, to what we're going to be doing for the next 30 years or so.
Thank you. Dr. Hunter?
Well, I would echo what Director Flown said. That's a really big deal to me, to free up the finance and distribution folks to work, to do their jobs. And I asked before about customer traffic on Fridays, and staff responded that that's a light day. And when you consider the benefit of these folks being able to concentrate on their jobs, especially with, I consider this Gantt chart to be a very aggressive, assertive
Yes.
chart, and I'm really, really impressed by it, but that means that we need to have all hands on deck. And I'm really pleased to see that in researching it, that you determined that there could be a safety benefit for staff when cashing out, and that also, at first when you said 7:30, I thought, wow, that's really early, but when you think about folks that want to get in on their way to work, and you think about folks that are about to lose their water supply, that are lining up at the door, it actually makes perfect sense. I feel like it's the proverbial win-win, so good work.
Good. Dr. Johnson?
I'm glad that you took into consideration the public and seeing how we can best accommodate, the ratepayers, and also working with the staff. And the good news, I guess, with all of this is if it doesn't work, we can certainly bring it back. So, yeah, bravo.
Dr. Unger?
Yeah, when we did the organizational assessment, one of the meetings I sat in, and I believe maybe Sarah was there, and I brought it up, and it was like immediate, yes, please do this. I went and I polled other office employees, some people in the field, and they were like, yes, please do this. And I realized, yeah, that's a morale builder as well. I just was curious on people's hours. They will be clocking in at 7:30, but at least the counter folks will be clocking out at 5.
They're going to come to work at the same time, 7 o'clock in the morning.
7 to 5. That's our normal hours. So they'll have a half-hour prep in the morning and a half-hour in the afternoon for cash out.
Oh, so they're already here that early?
Right.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, no, it polled very well with everybody that I talked to, so I'm hoping this will really work out good. All the reasons in here are certainly pulling people to have to fill in. No, we do a very aggressive schedule that we're going, all hands on deck. These are all things that will move us into the 21st century, so let's do it.
I think this is an excellent change. I'm totally supportive. It's amazing. I've been getting out early in the morning to help my daughter walk dogs. Actually, we do it at 6. It's amazing how many people are out there. And so starting at 7:30 makes absolute sense in the desert. So with that, any public comment?
Effective what date?
August 1st.
Okay, so if it doesn't say that, August 1st is the date. And seeing no public comment, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. Recommend that the Board of Directors approve the new office hours Monday through Thursday, 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.
I think the motion would be that the Board of Directors approve the new one. Okay.
Oh, sorry about
Is there
that.
a second?
Effective August 1st.
Yes.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It is unanimous. The office hours have been changed. We are now closed Fridays.
And we'll be bringing back the resolution to amend the administrative code
Okay.
at August 1st, and it'll be a really dynamic meeting because there's about 2 or 3 other administrative code sections that need to be changed.
Oh, boy.
Oh, fun. Good. We will move to item number 11, Novell Systems, Inc., GeoViewer Online.
Okay, this is an ongoing discussion with how we're going to deal with our GIS, our interface with SEMS, our potential future interface with ENCODE, maybe, and other aspects. And Mark has the report.
Thank you. So one of the things that the district is currently lacking is a really good mapping system, one that can be updated frequently as changes take place. And with the capital projects that we're going to be undertaking, there's going to be several of those changes made. In addition to that, I'm aggressively working with staff right now to start to perform other tasks such as valve maintenance, our flushing programs, things of that nature. That also need to be recorded along with those assets out in the field that are a function of that mapping. And so being able to have that mapping as a standalone product is important to a water agency, but then also being able to track some of that work that's associated with it, like the valve maintenance and the flushing, work order management, sampling, our production numbers, things of that nature, of course, is equally important. Being able to have both of those together into one program to where it's a one-stop shop is very important to us. So currently, right now, we're utilizing a product called SEMS for our work order management system. A lot of the employees on the operations side don't like it. It's a very cumbersome program, and it doesn't track in the manner to where it's user-friendly when we go to pull reports and things of that. It kind of tracks several different aspects that don't really need to be. It can all kind of be under one one heading so that it's easy to find, easy to track. And basically, GeoViewer provides us with that service. It provides the mapping along with a really user-friendly work order management system that can be deployed out into the field via iPads. And so instead of using paper copy for doing our tank and booster run and transferring that information over into SIMS, the operator can have an iPad, basically take those meter readings, our chlorine reads, and things of that nature out in the field. It also works is compatible with our valve maintenance machine, our valve turning machine out there. And so as they go to different locations out there, it's automatically tracking where they're at how many times the valve turned, whether or not there was a broken valve in that location, and that basically shows back up on that mapping system too. And so we're able to track a lot of our work more efficiently and also address any issues that we have in the future. So all of our, basically our plans for our capital improvement projects will be uploaded on there as well, along with any past projects that we can. And so you'll be able to go into this, identify the water mains that you're looking at, and pull up any plans or documents that are associated with that asset as well, which is an important feature of it as well. So, anything else you want to add
Get
to
rid
it?
of Sims?
Yeah, and mentioning Sims, this would actually replace that as well, so. And I think currently, right now, we have to get some additional user licenses for that. We've been using, I think, 2 or 3 user licenses, and so this year, we're gonna have to pay, I think, $15,000 to $16,000 with our annual subscription fee, which is typically around, I believe, like $10,000 to $12,000,
Yeah,
Susan, if that's
yeah.
right. And so, basically, that cost will be eliminated in future years to come, so.
Thank you. Questions for Mark? Start here on Becky.
Oh, that fee you talked about, I think you said it was $15,000. In the report, it says $29,000.
It's a $15,000 fee for Sims.
Currently,
Oh, for Sims.
Yeah.
Okay.
what we're currently paying.
And I was really impressed with one sentence that was in here. I know we absolutely need this. I talked about being in the 21st century. Quote, "The type of data that an agency tracks is largely limited to the imagination when it comes to modern-day GIS." So, yeah, that's great. That's great. You've already outlined several uses that are like, kind of, you think, oh, gee, it's workaday. This is stuff that a lot of people are doing with their own home economics on their phone, so, good.
Well,
I think one of the things I like most about this is that there'll be savings somewhere down the road. So you won me over.
okay. Gary?
Well, as you all know, I use GIS on my job pretty much every day, and I've had a lot of conversations with Mark and Kurt about GeoViewer, and I've come to the conclusion that it's, personally, that it's a great platform. It's built on a foundation of GIS. I think that it's got tremendous capabilities and that it will save the district money in the long run.
Say it again.
And, the power of GIS, I mean, it can make great maps, and that's a wonderful thing, but what it does is it associates a whole body of data, spreadsheets as big or small as you want, with each feature out there on the land, whether it's a fire hydrant, or a valve, or a pipeline. You map things in lines, points, and polygons, depending on what the feature is. And what that allows you to do is, as it talks about on page 12, is all kinds of different powerful functionality, as they call it, that will enable you to really analyze your systems, to be able to do things like leak detection and cordoning off areas. And this is very powerful functional software that once you determine that where your leak is and what area, this will tell you what areas are affected, and then you could even do something like generate mailing labels and send out notification to all the affected customers. I mean, it really runs the whole gamut in terms of functionality of GIS. I think, as I said before, that I think in the long run, to the extent that we have GIS capability in-house, we want to look and see if there are things that our in-house folks can do that would lower our subscription cost over time. But beyond that, I fully support this, and I think that this is going to be a whole new era for the district to have this software in place. So great work, Mark and Kurt and Mark, for bringing this to us.
Thank you. Dr. Flown?
Does this system from Novell, the GeoViewer, does it assist you, at least in a backdoor way, with maintaining your parts inventories and stuff like that? You mentioned a while back to me that that was one of the things you were looking to do with improving your shop situation, was being able to manage the inventory and the ordering process and stuff like. Does this do anything with that? It should be able to tell you, because you got a project going, what went out there.
Right.
So I would imagine it could be. I didn't notice in here anything that specifically addressed that.
Yeah, that portion is going to be basically taken care of by the unlimited field documentation that they're going to provide us with. So we're going to have, work order forms, basically they're electronic, and from drop-down menus, they'll be able to select what type of inventory they're actually using for that specific project, which will take it out of the inventory base that's in GeoViewer. So accounting will be able to print out a report, on the spot or on a monthly basis, have it generated so that they can compare that to encode data and make sure that it's all matching.
I looked around, and these guys are used by significant people. Some down below, San Francisco is using them. They are a big deal. They are for real. My second rant of the evening, I brought visual aids. I don't know if Bob can see this kind of thing or not. It's a handwritten map of where items are in the area of the intersection of Dennis and Sunburst. That's roughly between the old school and the new school. That was one of the ways that things were kept track of by people that worked in the field. Source of that was Gary Wilson. They may still to this day be using his book in the shop over there. This giant map here, this was also a way that things were found and addressed in the field. This one's dated '03. If anybody remembers a guy that his car got washed away up in a torrential rainstorm up there, Carl, this was his book. He was a director on the board of the water company. The general manager knows that I have this, and he, may I point out, reminded me that it's out of date. And indeed, when somebody goes out in the field on some kind of, it wouldn't be a service call, it'd be some kind of a leak thing, or if any repair or improvement or replacement of anything in the field is done, this map that day becomes obsolete. It's not updatable. You would have to go through every copy that's out there for everybody and hand, I'm not sure, maybe you can replace pages, but hand correct this thing to show current information for everybody that goes out there and does stuff. You do it on paper. And this is no way to do the regular business that we were doing. And with all of this construction that we're going to be doing, spending millions of dollars all over the place doing stuff, including we've talked about the meter replacement again too, all of this stuff, if we don't have a modern way of accounting for everything that we're doing, in the first place, the state, who we're going to be reporting to yearly about what we're doing with the loan that we got, they're going to be unhappy, and we're going to potentially waste a lot of manpower and resources, which translates into money, chasing our own tails out.
Oh, I heard him.
Felt his eyes boring into you.
We're not doing this, I don't think, my opinion is I'm not in support of it because it's trendy or it's modern or it's the way to show off our fancy phones and iPads and computers and stuff. This is something that's essential for us.
Totally.
Thanks for the extra time, Madam
You're
President.
welcome for the extra time.
Thanks for the artifacts.
And I will agree, I think one of the big frustrations is that when you have a paper system like we do, the information does not get back to the office. And the as-bills and everything that happens, we need to be able to track that, and this will help us do that. So I'm very supportive of that.
No.
And you said it much better than I did, Tom. Any other public comment? Mr. Marquez?
Hello, Marquez, Sunshine Community of Joshua Tree. It's more of a question to the president of the board. This agreement with Nobel Systems, GeoViewer Online, and the amount is $52,600. Now, what is the term of the agreement? Is this going to be a one-year agreement, three-year agreement, or a five-year agreement? And is this going to be $52,000 a year for the term of the agreement? What is it?
Thank you. I'll have to turn that over to Mark, or to the general manager.
The agreement's basically pay-as-you-go. The initial setup fee is what's costing the additional $23,600. So the annual subscription to this is actually $29,000. So that's what we'll pay on an annual basis. So.
Yeah, to keep our records up to date, yeah, that's a small price to pay, in my opinion. Any other public comment? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
I just wanted to add one more thing, if that's okay. I just wanted to speak to one of the things that Tom said, and I think maybe it's important for folks to understand this, and that is that when staff records with a GPS unit, which means that they will be recording the location of something they do very accurately for future reference and use, that will immediately update the database and the maps, and then the maps can then be turned around and pushed back out into the field with all that new information with those corrected locations. So essentially, the virtual map book like that never goes out of date, and it's immediately updated, and that is, so important for staff in terms of time and safety and efficient operations, and then also for reporting, like to the state. Staff's going to be entering, they're going to have these drop-down menus with forms that they're going to fill in, that will put down all the information about what they did, everything from the parts they used, to when they did it, to where they did it, to how much time it took. All of that will be recorded. So for future budgeting, for reporting across the board, a GIS system and this GeoViewer on top of it with all its functionality will allow things like that to happen. So it isn't just because it's the latest and greatest, like Director Flown said, it's because it is a very functional tool that will benefit us greatly. Thanks.
And the staff will be using iPads or something like an iPad.
Correct.
That's
Yeah.
how they do it, so we'll get away from paper,
Exactly.
which is huge.
One more thing, what you sort of suggested that there's some complexity to this. In other words, there's a lot of data that may have to be entered, but
Right.
there's a list in the report from these geo people, Nobel Systems. They list in here on page 45 of 68 the main objectives of the system. Number one is the ability for non-GIS staff to use this system effectively with less than 4 hours of training. And so it's a lot of data, it's a lot of information that's going to go in, but apparently the software is such that a lay person with a minimum amount of training can actually use it. Because if you don't insert the data, you can't get the data out. And so
Right.
this is encouraging to me that it says
Right.
that.
You have to use it.
Yeah.
Any public comment? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
I move that we recommend the Board of Directors authorize the general manager to enter into an agreement with Nobel Systems, Inc. in the amount of $52,600 for unlimited use of GeoViewer Online.
Okay, let's change one thing about that. That the board will authorize, not recommend. That was.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? You're unanimous, and congratulations. I
Thank
feel
you.
that we've just taken giant steps into the future tonight. It really feels amazing. Okay, we will move to item number 12, the general manager employment agreement. So we're going to consider approving amendment number 2 to the employment agreement for the district's general manager, which was negotiated by the ad hoc negotiation committee, which is Director Johnson and Director Unger, and pursuant to the guidelines provided by the board. So,
Yeah.
is this you? Oh, it's you guys.
Yep, us. Vice President Johnson and I met together, we conferred on this. This is a yearly review for the general manager. Went to Kurt, talked with him, invited the rest of the board in then, in closed session, talked about many things. Kurt got a very good review from all the board, I must say, very good. And the board felt very strongly that they could make these changes to Kurt's employment agreement. And they are, it's included in the agenda packet. I hope everyone in the audience got one. And I guess I would take any questions from the board right now. If they looked over this and said that's not what we thought we agreed on. Any
Do you
questions?
want to go through the, or do you want to just leave it?
I think we just leave it at, there was,
Okay, leave it at- Okay, any questions from the board? We did go over this
No, I think
quite a great deal.
I think it accurately reflects our discussion
Oh,
of the
good, good,
agreement.
good. I
I
thought
would
so
agree
too.
with that. Any public comment? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Madam President, this is on the web. This is on our website, included in the packet. So if we're sort of breezing through this, and if anybody in the public wants to examine this, it will be there.
Yes.
And I guess I should add to the motion, once this is approved, do we automatically dissolve the ad hoc, or is that a separate motion?
An ad hoc, yeah, when it's no longer needed, it dissolves.
Your work is
Goes
done.
away,
It's over.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So it'd be understood that the ad hoc committee then, upon acceptance of the changes to the employment agreement, will
No longer
dissolve
until we need to again.
until next year.
Madam President, I think I'd like to say one thing about this. Well, just that not everybody is going to look it up online, so I just wanted to say that the general manager's salary compensation is not increasing, but we did agree to increase contributions to his cafeteria plan for health insurance and to his vacation compensation.
Those were the two changes.
Those are the two changes.
Yep. Okay, with that, any public comment? I think you guys would agree he's doing a great job. So, do I have a motion?
I would move that the board consider and approve.
No.
No?
It would approve.
It would approve the amendment, I'm just reading here.
You can
Approve.
read it, just leave it and consider.
Okay. The employment agreement with the district with the general manager, with the amendment which has been mentioned, and the dissolving of the ad hoc negotiation committee, and pursuant to the guidelines provided by the board.
I second.
Okay, so it's moved and seconded. We'll do a roll call vote. We'll start with Director Unger,
Aye.
Director Johnson.
Aye.
Director Hund,
Aye.
Director Sloan,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Congratulations, that has been passed, and you really are doing a magnificent job. We thank you for being part of our great district. With that, I will move to item number 13, the district council.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, all the matters I've worked on, the legal services I worked on in conjunction with staff during the last 2 weeks, none of those require legal commentary tonight. So as such, I have no report.
Okay, thank you. General manager's report.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the board for your actions tonight and the support that you are giving to this district. I think that support comes from the trust of the employees. And I think the employees, I know the employees appreciate it, as was expressed to you at the all-employee picnic or whatever. And even Director Flown is no longer looked at askance when he shows up at the leaks, and I expect sometime in the next couple of months, they'll start handing him a shovel. I'm not sure that they're going to let him drive the motor grader. And also to the staff. This staff is pretty incredible. It's a pleasure to work with. Susan's been here 30-plus years, and her energy is reinvigorated with the passing of the rate study and getting all this stuff moving. Excellent work on the loan research. Soon she'll be bringing you some other things in August that she's working on. Sarah has her job cut out for her with all of the organizational assessment changes and job descriptions and negotiations with the union to get the job descriptions approved so that we can hire the people to run the equipment. And Susan's staff, Ann and Autumn and Gail, are doing great customer services. Ready to go on Fridays. They are excited. And Mark coming on board has brought GeoViewer and a very thorough understanding of capital, mainline replacement, capital improvement, capital replacement plan is what they call it from someplace that he came from. It's just a dynamic place. And even your Citizens Advisory Committee is actively participating in various things. They're coming to the board meetings. Karen's representing them on the Solar Technical Advisory Committee. They were instrumental in the low income. They've got some recommendations for the Customer Account Assistance Program, which we'll talk about, I think, on August 1st. So it's just fun to be here. In fact, Susan came out of her office today and said, "I'm having fun!" So it's just great. And not to be nowhere or forget about Beverly, and Kathleen's not on staff, but she's one of us, so it's just fun. With that, I'll let you know that our conservation figures for June, remember June was kind of hot, you've probably forgotten about it because the first 18 days of July have been hotter. Our conservation compared to 2013 is down 13%. 13%. And that's great for conservation. Buy more water. We need the revenues. So, and by the way, Bob, it's down less than it was last year because of the weather, so the revenue should be ticking up. And
Hallelujah.
with that, that's the end of my staff report. Yes, ma'am.
Well 14?
Oh, well 14. Mark?
We'll actually be disinfecting that well. If you remember correctly, Lynch, who did this last rehabilitation on well 14, after the present results that we got, has offered to come back up free of charge and provide another disinfection to the well. One that he says he's never had a well come back with a present afterwards. So they'll actually be up here next week on Tuesday to perform that. They were going to come on Thursday, but being towards the end of the week, we wanted to push it out to beginning so we could pay attention to it all week long. So they'll be up Thursday or Tuesday next week, and hopefully start sampling that by the end of the week. So by next board meeting, we'll have a definitive answer as to which direction well 14 will be taking us.
Thank you.
And let me just also comment that I guess Al has been talking to Mark, or vice versa. Mark's, I think it was today, mentioned the possibility of looking at well 11 as a supplemental well. And Susan pointed out in the discussion that it has been offline longer than 2008. It went offline finally shortly after the Landers earthquake some 26 years ago. And it had sanding, and there is a theory that the earthquake damaged the casing. But Mark's already gotten a bid to do a downhole video and pull the equipment and see if it's functional, or could be made functional. And there's
Kidding.
4 log is being considered, and Mark is already thinking about if we have to find another well, site, where and what we have to do that. So it's, well 14, we want back online. And if it doesn't work, then we're already laying plans for the next step.
Is well 11 over by the community center?
Yes.
Any questions for him? Seeing none?
One more thing.
Hmm?
Just to bring you up to
Oh,
speed.
excuse me.
Or maybe, I didn't cover the technical advisory.
You didn't?
So last week, or I don't know, the week before, we met with the California Energy Commission representative on the grant for solar feasibility, for a solar farm. She attended by phone. The consultant that did the feasibility study attended, as did some 5 or 6 members of the Technical Advisory Committee, citizens from the community that are well-versed in solar. And we reached an agreement that CEC is going to complete the draft report sometime in the next month, I expect. We are meeting again with the Technical Advisory Committee on August 2nd to discuss those parcels of land. We need about 6 to 10 acres where we could site a solar field done within the guidance of the county's solar policies, and also considering replacing outdated motors. Many of our motors are high efficiency, as I understand it, but the technologies that have advanced, well, and they are 2007, I believe, and older. So, and the booster pumps are, except for the pneumatic station, are 20 years old. And so the technologies that have advanced for high efficiency motors, while the motors are somewhat costly, the total estimated, and this is just original or initial estimate, is some $285,000 to $300,000 to replace all of those motors. The payoff in reduced electrical consumption could be within a year. And that reduced consumption, a reduced need to produce as much electricity as we are buying, allows us to put in a smaller solar array. And we will be very cognizant of the community and where that would go. If indeed we decide to get a loan from CEC, which is a 1%,
1%.
but paid back based on the amount of money you save that you're not paying Southern California Edison. So it's kind of a ingenious little way to help folks. But there's still a lot of stuff to do. We've got to get with SCE. And it's not like we're going to be doing this in June, which staff is very happy to hear. We'll be busy. That's the end of my report.
Thank you.
Could I add to what
Sure.
Kurt said? Thank you. I just wanted to add that part of the real beauty of getting this grant and having this scoping and feasibility report done is that not only did they assess the feasibility of us going solar to reduce our energy costs, but they also did an energy audit, and Kurt was referencing one of the big finds, and that was that if we replace our motors for our pumps, that we could realize substantial savings with less than a year of time that it would take to pay back the cost. But they looked at everything. They looked at lighting, like our lighting overhead here, our fluorescent lights, and replacing them with LED, with smart thermostat controls, and on it went. And it was really great, really great. And And some of the participants in our technical advisory committee have given great input and made some great suggestions that Kurt recognized were great suggestions, and the consultant has agreed to do further study to, for one, look at what the additional energy costs would be if we moved our fleet over to EVs, to electric vehicles ultimately. And since most of our driving is done short distance, our vehicle usage is perfect for EV, and EV technology is evolving very rapidly. So I think that we will, that'll be another way in which we'll roar into the 21st century here. So,
Thank you. All right. We will move to the public outreach consultant, Kathleen Ravitch.
Well, we did not have a meeting on July 4th, so I have a lot of stuff to cover. Just a reminder, August 1st, we will have the Low Income Assistance Program launched with, in the lobby, the applications, or online August 1st through United Way of the Desert, or thereafter you can go to the Yucca Valley Salvation Army. And all this information is in the newsletter and the coming newsletter that comes out for August 1st. Secondly, we did receive grants for our district tours and for Water Education Day from the Mojave Water Agency's Alliance for Water Awareness and Conservation arm of, we call it AWAC. So moving forward, we will continue these programs. Pretty excited about that. The Joshua Tree National Park has notified me of their intent to continue our wildcrafting program. We're coming up on the 5-year anniversary. It was a pilot program that has gone right, and it is growing in popularity. We completed in June our recent spring wildcrafting class that was filled beyond capacity. We already have a waiting list for our next one. I had to also do a class for 2 deaf people who were very interested in learning how to wildcraft, and that went very well. No, I do not do sign language. They brought an interpreter, but it was fascinating, and they were just so stoked and excited when they left. So it's a very strong, positive program that, like I said, it's going right. So the National Park and I will be meeting. We will be discussing any changes, which we really don't think there will be. We're just going to keep going forward and trying to increase our inventory. Now, something really exciting is that I got a call from AWAC's director, Nicholas Schneider, and contrary to popular belief, nagging does work. We have been nagging AWAC. Kurt is part of this since we went into our mandated drought, everything that we were doing, and we were working on the swamp cooler. We want a swamp cooler study for people in the desert. They did the toilets. They found out toilets were using up too much water. They did a big study on that, not necessarily AWAC, but the state. So AWAC went to the state and said, we want money. The state says, this sounds like an interesting study. We'll get back to you. And they have been asking the state for money. The state still has not said yes, sir. They haven't really said no. They just haven't given us the money. Well, Mojave Water Agency said, well, Joshua Basin Water District will be the lead on this program, but that was about a year ago, at least a year. And so, of course, I nag really well. So at these AWAC meetings, I keep bringing it up. Well, I got a call from Nicholas, and he said, we're going to move forward on the swamp cooler study. And I said, oh, great, you got the grant. He goes, no, but we're going to give you some money, and we're going to get started on it right away, starting August. He wants to get this launched with the Alliance for Water Awareness and Conservation backing it and their funds. And so I will have more information for you, but I don't have all the, it just happened in a phone call yesterday, and there'll be more coming, but his plan is to launch this in August with, our area is, we're the lead, but we're the Morongo Basin, and they're going to include Phelan for this study. So the idea is to prove that inefficient swamp coolers use a lot of water, just like inefficient toilets do. It's just not been done. So it's kind of exciting. We're going to be in the forefront of this study. And we're out at the market, and we are personally demonstrating our theme, which is hydration for good health. We are enduring extreme weather and doing it quite well, and we are saving lives every Saturday with a cooling station. Also, our Legislative and Public Information Committee meeting, which had been shifted to a quarterly meeting, it is scheduled for August 1st, Wednesday, at 9:30 a.m., and I'll just put this out there, I have another new exciting thing to share at this meeting, but you have to wait till then. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Madam President,
Yes, sir.
and to add to the swamp cooler study, you don't know this yet, but I didn't know they were including Phelan Pinion Hills, but,
Well, see, I knew that, you did.
yeah, there you go. So Mark met with Ray today, and you can fill us in on that discussion as far as the swamp coolers go. Or maybe you'd just like me to fill you in.
No, 29 had actually looked at the swamp cooler study on their own several years ago, where they did a small study using their own staff, placed meters on some select swamp coolers out there, ranging from master cools down to your run-of-the-mill, cheaper, less efficient swamp cooler. And actually found that some of the ones that were having issues were using up to like 10 gallons per hour, so it's certainly a study worth looking at with those kind of numbers out there. So they were actually wanting to move on to putting some of those units side by side and, metering them, potentially getting some efficiency testing out there for medicine and some other things like that. So I think, as we continue to work together to identify what the scope of the study is, that's certainly something to kind of keep in mind as well. I think it was $6,000, I think that was available for.
Right now, that's the seed money for the project. They're still hoping to get the grant from the state. But there's some other things floating around with this whole project, and nothing's locked in stone yet. But aside from the inefficiencies, just like with toilets, we did the toilet swap over time, and the whole state got involved in that. But there's other solutions that are simpler too, and some of them are simply changing the bleed-off system, which is nothing in cost, because the amount of water that they give for some of these bleed-off for the evaporative coolers, the amount of water coming through, we actually, at my place, we clamp it so not so much water bleeds off, and because it was volumes. And so just changing out I see, what's it called, not the bleed off, the,
Overflow?
well, it's not an overflow, it's where you direct the water, instead of just to recycle it, you maybe direct it to water plants or something. But you just plug this thing in, and it's a cheap thing that can be used to reuse the water. It's just what they're offering right now still uses too much water. So there's all these components and parts to be looked at that no one's ever done. And living in the desert, for many of us, the swamp coolers, our health. So this has a lot of potential.
Yeah, one of the things when they were talking about gallons per person per day was when you have a swamp cooler, you use more water than a house with air conditioning. And, but with all the minerals in the water, you really do have to have that, or it takes the water out before it stays. Otherwise, it will destroy your swamp cooler within a few years. So it's, you have to balance everything. Yeah, good, that's really good news. Okay, Finance Committee. You want to talk about your wonderful committee?
The riveting, most exciting committee that there is here at the Joshua Basin Water District. I invite one and all to come to our next one, which is as I read here August 8th. But I just want to say thanks to the staff and everybody else that participates with that, especially the CAC with the input. We rigorously try to manage from a committee perspective and report back in a diligent, professional manner, so thank one and all.
Yeah. And Water Resources and Operations was July 11th. Quite honestly, I did bring my notes. Is there anything that we need to pass on about that?
I've got,
Okay.
oh, I just wanted to say what I recall, and I didn't bring my notes, but what I recall is we basically, like the Finance Committee, the General Manager went through the different loan options with us, and also discussed the draft report from the consultant on the solar energy feasibility and energy audit. And if you don't get enough fun at the Finance Committee meeting, our
Stick
meeting is
around.
right after that.
They
And
take a lot of time. We're out of there in
Yeah.
an hour. They're
Yes.
an hour and a half.
Yes.
of money.
yes, we used to meet at 10, but we had to bump our meeting to
Yeah,
10:30
bump our meeting to 10:30.
to accommodate them. But what I did want to say in all seriousness is I think for both the Finance Committee and the Water Resources and Operations Committee meetings, it's a great opportunity, if you can find the time to go, to get more detail about this stuff that really helps with increasing one's understanding of the district and its operations and its finances. And it's actually interesting stuff, and I don't think it's just because I'm kind of a geek. It really is. You'd be surprised. Come on out and attend one of the meetings.
It really is interesting. I especially like Water Resources and Operations. Much more fun than this. Okay. Rebecca, you want to talk about the Mojave?
Yeah, and I thought it was really interesting, a couple things that have been talked about here tonight were pertinent to the meeting on the 12th. All the directors are present, there were no changes to the agenda, but they did a workshop on water conservation, the regulation that's coming through, and General Manager McCarthy said the governor plans to make water conservation a way of life. And so here you have Mojave looking at ways to outreach for the various pieces of all this water conservation legislation. And Nick Schneider, who is Mojave's water conservation manager, he ran through all these different, the drought executive orders, Senate and Assembly bills that deal with efficiency regulations. And even then he says, these are just the foundations. He says, they're not even any walls, doors, or windows. And he talked about how some of these Senate bills are going to affect the urban water management plans on everything from fire protection, different water loss reporting from city to city. Schneider is also a certified water loss auditor. Even things like what they call non-revenue water. And since Mojave is going to be updating their urban water management plan in 2023, they're looking ahead because we talked about that gallons per day that's going to be, with conservation, decreased from 55 GPD to 50 GPD by 2030. He assured nervous directors there would be no shower police. It's not going to be measured on an individual basis, but it will be through the agency's aggregate use in a service area. And Mojave is working to include swamp coolers for areas like the Morongo Basin in this budget, and also in areas like Phelan. He mentioned livestock and agriculture. He said there's water use here that's not, even contemplated in the urban water management plan, and the state, for that to look at that. He said, and not even to mention just outdoor water evaporation. And he even said that processed water that's used in manufacturing, has not even factored in. So we talked about it just being a foundation, no walls and doors. He was right. He said their goals with this outreach, he said, basically correct misinformation about the coming GPD requirements and help local agencies understand and explain these to their constituents with different presentations, newsletters, social media. And then this came up at the solar TAC. The Mojave board voted 5-2. Ventura and Coleman were the dissenters. They voted not to commit agency resources or finances at this time to forming a community choice aggregate power supply agency. Director Coleman, he said he resides in Apple Valley, and they have a CCA. And he said it's reduced their electric bills there. Director Ventura noted that there's no additional infrastructure needed to form a CCA. It's only mostly an administrative task, seeking contracts for power at the best price. GM McCarthy said that Mojave is already set up as a utility, but it would require a fee study to look at rates and customer needs. And they'd also have to figure about how to pay back some of those initial, costs for the study and the setup of the administrative structure. One setup, he did note it's self-supporting, but McCarthy also said that, a CCA is not clearly aligned with Mojave's mission or vision. He said even though it could be beneficial, he was the one who recommended that Mojave not commit to a CCA at this time. During public comment, a couple of people from the California Desert Coalition were there, and I believe they had come to a meeting, a technical advisory committee meeting where they were talking about a CCA before this, I guess, where they had given a lot of input. David Miller was there. He said predictions are that soon 60% of the state will be in a CCA. Claudia Saul said that the CDC has been tracking these for at least 3 years. She said that she felt that Mojave Water Agency is a good leader for this. But Jeanette Hayher, she's the chair, I guess, of the Mojave's Technical Advisory Commission.
Yes, the TAP.
Yeah, she bemoaned the dinosaur LNG/CNG fueling station that was built in Barstow, God, over 10 years ago. No, 20 years ago. She said it was never used, it barely broke even, was almost immediately obsolete due to tech changes. And she made an equation with CCAs with this Barstow plant. And she said, what technology can come out in the next 5 years? Don't do this thing now. And I was curious. I went online and I hunted down a report from Barstow from a 2013-14, their kind of city's report. And they did notice in that year that the fueling station operated a $300,000 loss. Now that has nothing to do with CCAs or anything like that, but these were things that we've been talking about here. People are interested in here, and those came up at the meeting. And anyone who's going next to Mojave,
That could be me instead of Bob.
be aware they still are doing lots of road construction. Especially had the work cut out after the rain.
Oh gosh.
But that's my report.
Thank you.
Welcome.
You sure you don't want to go?
I'll let you use my truck.
Thank you so much. All right. Future director meetings, as I just said, I'm going to take the Mojave meeting to Bob. The Legislative and Public Information Committee, Kathleen mentioned, is August 1st. And then the Technical Advisory Committee is August 2nd, and I will be going to that. I'm really glad there's construction on the road, I'll tell you.
It's not so bad early in the morning.
Yeah, that's
You're
good.
getting up early, it's perfect.
Yeah, it is perfect. Finance will be August 8th at 9, and Water Resources will be August 8th at 10:30, because these people.
Yeah, Tom.
Oh, boy.
All right, and with that, is there anything else for the good of, yes,
Director
Tom.
comments?
Oh, director comments. Do I have to let you talk? Okay, Tom,
You
we'll
know,
start at your
I'm
end.
eating hog today. Next Saturday is the third Saturday of the month, and that means that the household waste dump is, this is the mailer everybody got, is open. It's just on the other side of the flood control bridge over there. It's very efficient. Do not take your couch. They're there for household waste, pesticides, oil, batteries, that kind of thing. Kudos to Kathleen and her booth operations over at the farmer's market on Saturdays. She sits there, stands there, loads the truck, unloads the truck. Every Saturday. 2 weeks ago, the temperature inside our shaded shelter was 110 degrees. And last week, it was 107 degrees under that. We go there for relief. And she's very energetic there and very outgoing and attentive to whatever the needs of us, in particular, everybody but the Joshua Tree folks yeah, call me, I'll call you, give me your phone number, I'll take you on a tour, all that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, she usually has 2 or 3 big men with her there. And at the end of the day, she's the one that has more energy than any of us. And I very much admire her, and I've stated that to Kurt on many occasions, because I sit there and I interact too. I don't just sit there. I watch what she does, and she is quite an inspiration and a guide on how I would like to deal with the public. And she is there every week. Just briefly on this well 14 and all that stuff, I know staff is frustrated with it, the board is frustrated with it, the public is frustrated with it. And one of the reasons is that we're relying on the rest of our system, which is aging, to make up the difference. And in one of Susan's reports here, she's indicating that we're pushing 390 million gallons of water through that system every year. She updates, it's a year-to-date kind of a thing that she does there, 390 plus million gallons of water through this old system. And all of the stuff we've talked about tonight and the relief about being able to do things to fix all of this is real, and it's palpable, because we know that we need to do this to deliver this much of a food-grade product. Something that we might look at in the future, Kurt mentioned at one of the 2 meetings, either finance or the resource meeting last week, that he's concerned, you can speak for yourself, you're right there, he's concerned about his ability to financially maneuver through a lot of this because of the way he is allowed to spend money. There are limitations on the way he may independently, if that's the right word, spend the funds he needs to keep this place going and to marshal these great efforts that we're going through to repair this place. So I'm just kind of maybe suggesting to staff, with the board sensitized to it, because there's limits on the ways we can talk about it, but if there's ways that you can add some flexibility to this without your ability to spend money, without compromising visibility, so to speak, I would be very interested to hear about it, because we do need to go on this. And this process of approval for certain kinds or amounts for spending can delay things for weeks. And I don't think we're going into an environment where we can practically do that. At least it's a suggestion that we consider it in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen?
I just wanted to, sitting here listening to Tom speak, I was thinking about the time that I've been attending board meetings and then became a member of the board, and just in that brief period of time since the election a little under 2 years ago, just how much this district has accomplished. And it's remarkable. It's really remarkable. And now we're on the verge of setting forth to really make some tremendous strides in replacing our aging infrastructure and bringing ourselves even farther into the 21st century. We were already there, but we're taking some great strides forward as a district, and I really credit a lot of different people and entities. It's obviously the staff, and I think it's a board that's come together to work toward the greater good, and a very involved and intelligent and thoughtful Citizens Advisory Committee. I really feel like we're really firing on all cylinders here, and it's a great thing to see, and I think it'll be a great benefit to the community going forward. So I think we're we're definitely working to try to accomplish the greater good. And I don't think it could happen unless there was, real unanimity. And that unanimity doesn't happen because, we're a pushover board or because the Citizens Advisory Committee isn't paying attention and it's just a social club. It's not that way at all. I mean, we have some very frank and open and significant discussions about all of these things, but I think we all have that same goal in mind, and I think that this is a really great timing, even though it's going to be hard to fit in to update, redo our strategic plan, and I think that when you're about to, as an organization, to really break out and to go to a whole new level and to take on even more responsibility by doing our own work in-house, you need to update your strategic plan, and so I think it's perfect timing for that as well. And the last thing I want to say about that is, I'm going to try not to tear up here, but I think somebody named Victoria Fuller is looking down on us right now, and this is exactly what she wanted to see happen, and she was a big part of setting this in motion, as our other veteran board members up here tonight. So anyway, that's all.
Should be very proud. Wow.
Wow, that's hard to follow.
Yes.
Hey, Vic, how you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, we miss you. Thanks to the staff. We do have some exciting committee meetings. We really try to represent the ratepayers from all different perspectives, and it's heartfelt, and we really try to, I think, as a board, try to bring that across and do the best that we can. So, it's always one of those things. And it's hot. I'm reminded of the hydration thing, and I'm an animal person. I just want to say, hey, keep your animals plenty of water. I appreciate the comment there about some of the rural, because there's a lot of folks out here that have critters, and they drink water too. So stay hydrated, stay cool, stay safe. Thanks to our first responders, the men and women in uniform, and thank you, board.
And I was thinking of Victoria just last couple of days, and yeah, these are things that I think that she would have loved to have seen, go through. Tom, I'm glad you're on the board. And I wanted to shout out to Kathleen for your wildcrafting program and how successful it is. And that was the Best in Blue winner. And look how far you've come. I mean, it's proven it wasn't just, it was a cool thing one season and that was it. Great goings, great goings. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll just say, remember hydration, take us with
Turgor
a
test.
little bit,
The Turgor test.
yes. And if you have, like I do, although I've been drinking water all day, you're a bit dehydrated, so check to make sure you are perfectly hydrated. And with that, do I have a motion for adjournment?
Move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned August 1st, see you then.